Hey guys, Phil here with Sawback Gear. We're in Zion National Park, and if you're planning on making a trip here and you don't know where to get started, we get our top 3 must-see places to go.
Alright guys, so the first top 3 must-see we have for you in Zion is Angel's Landing. Right now it's just off to my right. We did it earlier today. It was absolutely amazing. I'll be completely honest, I was pretty scared a lot of the time. It's really intimidating. You've got very narrow walkways with 1,000-foot cliffs on either side, people trying to pass each other. But it was a really fun experience and I would 100% do it again. It was a little bit crowded. We actually got there at 7 in the morning, and even then there were quite a few people. I would definitely recommend that 7 is the latest that you arrive there. It gets too crowded, and when people are up there crowded, anxious, that's a recipe for mistakes. And when you're 1,000 feet off the floor, mistakes are never good things. The trail is about 2.5 miles long one way, so that's about 5 miles round trip. It's about 2 miles to Scouts Lookout. And then after that you have about half a mile to 3/4 of a mile of the chain cliff walking. It's actually a really fun experience, but it's very steep. There's a lot of vertical gain in a very short horizontal window. But once you're up there, the views are absolutely stunning. Unfortunately, we weren't able to get a ton of footage from that part because we did not have the proper equipment to mount the cameras, and I did not want to hold it in my hand the entire time because I enjoy living. The trail up to Scouts Lookout was fairly steep at some portions, but when we did it, it was in the shade for the majority of the time. We saw a little bit of wildlife up there. We saw a peregrine falcon at one point fly right above our heads. We saw a marmot and a couple of the wacos in the walls nearby. At one point it was even funny. I looked down and said, "Hey look, there's a falcon flying down there." You know you're high up when you're looking down at a flying bird. I would definitely not recommend this hike for anybody who's even almost afraid of heights. I'm a rock climber and I'm pretty used to heights, but it even gave me a little bit of a little anxiety. I would definitely not recommend it for anybody with any kind of balance issues or any kind of health conditions or any kind of anxiety disorders, because it is scary, and if you get up there and you freeze, it's very difficult to get you back down, and it's very difficult for other people to get around you because the pathways are so narrow. I would say the hardest part of the entire thing though was honestly the crowd management. When you're trying to pass groups of people on really narrow pathways above a cliff, you really have to be patient, and it's best if somebody takes charge and kind of directs traffic, and everybody just cooperates together because nobody should be in a rush. There's no time limit on the hike. In fact, the slower and the steadier you go, the more likely you are to actually get there. The views from the top were amazing. There was quite a few places to eat lunch. There were lots of chipmunks, so please don't feed them, and please watch out for them because they will try and eat your food from your bag. On the way back down, we did hit a bit of sun, which made it pretty hot, but our entire way up the trail was actually covered in shade because we started so early. I would honestly recommend trying to get on the first 6 a.m. shuttle and getting off at the trailhead, which is located at the grotto. Bring lots of water and lots of snacks. There are toilets at Scouts Landing, but they only clean them every other year, and I would honestly not recommend using them. Somebody told me that they're only for emergencies. I'm not certain that that's true. But, like I said, they are disgusting and I would not recommend using them. They do have bathrooms at the grotto, which is what I would recommend using. Honestly guys, I want you to be really careful if you do decide to do this one. The sign at Scouts Landing says that 6 people have died since 2004, and I actually believe the number is a little bit higher than that. I don't think they've changed the sign yet. So people do die on this route. It's not for the faint of heart, and it's not for complete novices. I know it's on our top 3 must-see list, but honestly, if it's not something that you feel comfortable doing, I would definitely not recommend it. In general, the National Park Service has done a great job in maintaining the chains and the trail, and they do the best that they can to make it as safe as possible, but you just need to be really careful and you need to evaluate your own self before you decide to go up the route. It is an amazing experience. I'm not trying to dissuade you from it. I would 100% do it again, but it does make you nervous the whole time. So just make sure you know what you're capable of before you do decide to go up this route.
Hey guys, we're at one of our top 3 must-see places in Zion. This place is awesome. This is called Emerald Pools. There's 3 different pools. You've got lower, middle, and upper. We're currently at the upper. Man, it is hot today. We are in Zion in the end of June, and it is about 100 degrees out here. So when you're out here, please bring a lot of water because you're going to go through it. These waters here are protected, by the way. You can't get in them. You're not supposed to be drinking it for sure. It's just look only. But the really cool thing is the way this water gets here. Seeps down through the sandstone. When it hits an impermeable rock, it starts weeping out of the rock and it flows down into these beautiful pools. So the way you get here, you're at stop number 5, which is just across, or it stops at the Zion Lodge. And this trailhead is just across the street from the main lodge. It can also be accessed from shuttle stop number 6, which is known as Grotto Stop. Once you get off at the Grotto Stop, you take the Kayenta Trail. It will lead you to this place. It's only slightly longer than it is from the Zion Lodge, and it's well worth the trip. You need to be here. The Emerald Pools Trail has 3 different pools. Each are about half a mile spaced apart. First one obviously is about a half mile, and a half mile to the second one, and this is the third one. So it's a mile and a half one way, 3 miles round trip. Make sure you're prepared for that. The first pool is relatively easy to get to. The trail is paved and it's wheelchair accessible in case you have some physical challenges that you would like to see this place, that you can get there. So we saw a lot of strollers and people coming up, some elderly. It was really awesome though to see them there and being involved in this thing. The trip from the first pool to the second pool though has a lot of steps, and they're very sandy and slippery in places, and it's a little bit more strenuous to get to the second pool. The third pool, once you get up there, is very exposed, and why we were so hot today. So the first pool you get to is the lowest pool. That pool is actually fed from the second pool that you're going to hike to. That's the little bit more strenuous pool, but you can see it as the water is coming up over the edges and splashing down. It's very refreshing, so it's kind of nice to just stand there after the first time, or the first pool that you get to. So the second pool you get to, again, feeds that one, and the third one, which is the last one that we're at right now, is actually the main pool that feeds the other 2 that are below it. So total elevation gain from the very first pool that you get to the last pool is 400 feet. Feels a lot more when it's really hot, but it's well worth it. Probably the best time to see this is during the spring, after the winter thaw. If the trail gets too icy, they will close it. So sometimes in the wintertime it can be closed. But summertime is going to see less water. Fall will see a little bit more, but definitely you're going to get the most water during the springtime. Watch your kids too if you got little ones. They're really interested in playing in this water, and like I said before, these places are protected. You're not supposed to be in the water. And then also watch as you're climbing too, to be careful on the edges because there are some steep areas. So guys, this is a really awesome place to be. You got to be here. Please take care of these places. Treat them with a lot of respect. Take a lot of pictures, but try and leave no trace. This is absolutely one of the most special places in Zion. And that's why this place is one of our top 3 must-see in Zion.
Hey guys, we're in the Narrows in Zion National Park. It's one of the most popular places in the entire park. Whenever it's really hot outside, which it often is, this place is amazing because the canyon walls are so high and the canyon is so narrow that there's shade almost the entire way. You're walking in water up to knee deep most of the time. It's not a particularly challenging hike, which is great. One of the best parts though is that there's no real destination. So you can really walk as far as you want and then turn around. So it's great for kids and elderly and anybody who's just looking for a casual stroll. It's great scenery, but if you go further back, you're able to kind of avoid where lots of people are, avoid some of the crowds. Most people don't go all the way back into the end of the canyon, so if you do go back there, not only will you have a little bit of privacy, but you'll be able to see some really cool things like Orderville Canyon and Wall Street, both of which are amazing things that you can see in the back of this canyon. Make sure that if you come on this trail, even though it's a little bit colder, you're still going to need lots of water. There's plenty of places to filter your water. Obviously, it's a river, so if you bring your water filter, that's not as big of a problem. Make sure you bring some kind of water shoes and water socks. Neither of those are particularly necessary, but they really do help. There's quite a bit of rocks at the bottom of the river, and it really hurts if you don't have some kind of padding on your shoes. And the socks help keep your feet a little bit warm because the water is a bit chilly, especially during the spring and fall months. Another great thing that helps a lot is bringing hiking poles. I cannot stress enough how great it is to have that extra bit of stabilization while you're trying not to fall into the water. Also, you're going to want to be careful because there are plenty of locations in the river where the depth of the water changes pretty abruptly with no warning. So you take one step in and you're suddenly up to your chin. It's pretty fun, to be honest, but if you have anything in your backpack that you don't want to get wet, I would just keep an eye out for that and walk carefully. So if you want to walk the full length of the canyon, it's about 5 miles, which is about 10 miles, round trip. However, you do have to include the walk from the bus stop to the river, which is just over my left shoulder here. You can see where the trail ends. Another great thing is that if you don't want to walk in the river, you can walk along the river on what's called the Riverwalk Trail. It's roughly 2 miles. I don't actually know the exact number. That's just a guess. But it's all paved the whole way, and it gives really great views of the river. So that way you can see the views without actually getting wet. Orderville Canyon and Wall Street start about 3 miles from the end of the Riverwalk Trail here. So once you get in the water, about 3 miles until you can see either of those. And then if you choose to split off and turn right into Orderville Canyon, it goes back quite a ways and eventually reaches an impassable waterfall unless you have the proper climbing equipment. One thing that we're sorry we weren't able to do is you can actually hike down from higher locations such as Orderville Canyon and some of the other branch canyons that are in the back of the main Narrows as well. So you can start up there, camp overnight, and hike your way out and meet up with the tram. Just make sure you look at the National Park Service's website to see if there are any permits required for what you're planning on doing. If so, reach out to the National Park Service directly and they can get you a permit. If you think that you're going to be walking 3 miles an hour up this trail, you're sadly mistaken because half the time you're knee-deep in water and the current's flowing against you, and there are times when the current is pretty strong. So you actually walk much slower. So anticipate that it will take much longer than you think it will to get wherever you want to go. Another nice thing about the Riverwalk Trail is since it is paved, it is ADA accessible. So anybody who's in a wheelchair or maybe has a walker, they can still make the trail. Overall, this hike was really awesome. We had a great time. My whole family came, and it was a little bit challenging getting my grandpa and maybe even my mother through some of the parts, but overall, if you have a basic level of fitness, and even if you don't, it's not that challenging, so you can have a great time. It is very busy during the day since it's one of the most popular locations in the park, so don't expect to get a lot of alone time unless you hike much farther back in the canyon where most people have already turned back. There are a couple places along the trail where people have stuck their hands in the mud and placed their handprints on the wall. Same thing with building cairns. Both are forms of vandalism. The National Park Service really looks down on that, so I really hope you guys don't do that. The trail is beautiful enough on its own. I know it's fun to kind of leave your mark, but please don't. The Narrows was an easy trail to place on our top 3 must-see locations in Zion National Park because it's classic, the temperatures are cool even when it's hot outside, and honestly, the sights here, looking up at the edges of the slot canyons, it's absolutely stunning. I would 100% recommend that you come to this. If you don't have a lot of time in Zion, this is one of the main places I would recommend you go.
Okay guys, so that was our top 3 must-see places in Zion, but we're actually interested in knowing what it is your experiences were here in Zion too. Where were the places that you really liked being, and what did you really see that really made you excited about this place? So again, if you've been here, leave a comment below. Remember, when you guys come here, please take care of these places. They're special, special places. Remember to follow us on Instagram, Facebook, and we hope to see you outside.